together, and there you go. And people will be joining us, I'm sure, as we move in, but to respect everybody's time, and especially our presenters, Elizabeth Hittman and Kevin Kane will start. Mabel wanted to share a few words before we start.
Well, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to thank you all for joining us for another one of the Sherman Park Eco webinars. Tonight is Solar Power Hour. You'll learn a lot about solar power, solar panels from two of our Milwaukee residents who are working on behalf of their respective agencies, the City of Milwaukee and also Citizen Action, to discuss how you too can obtain solar panels for your property.
Mm-hmm. So thank you, Mabel. And
I am going to be doing the tech support. And I was just going to say, I'm going to be doing the tech support. If people have questions, please put them in the chat. And I am going to go off video and I will be here to support.
Okay, Mabel, will you be, quickly, will you be reading the questions, or should I do that?
Yes, I can read the questions.
Okay, great.
If you'd like.
All right, so welcome everybody. I hope you got a full dose of sun today, but protected yourself at the same time. I'm Tim Perkins. I'm a resident of Sherman Park and a member of Bethel Bethany United Church of Christ, and a member of the Sherman Park Environmental Collaborative Office Green Ambassadors, and appreciate everybody who's here tonight and all the good work you're doing to address environmental justice and to make our community even greener. Tonight we have Elizabeth Hittman, who is the Sustainability Program Director for the Environmental Collaborative Office, and she's going to talk about the Solar Buy Program and solar. And we also have Kevin Kane, who is the Chief Economist and Executive Director of Green Homeowners United, which is a spinoff of Citizen Action. And Kevin wasn't on your original flyer, but we're privileged to have Kevin with us tonight. Kevin is one option for doing energy assessments in your home. And we have a couple people, one, David Redeman, who's actually had that done recently. David may chime in with some of his experience tonight. And Kevin also has, Green Homeowners also has a very creative way of helping people to fund their solar installations if you are eligible. So Elizabeth is going to present for about 40 minutes, and then we'll have about 10 minutes for questions. And then Kevin is going to present for about 20 minutes with 10 minutes for questions, or 25 minutes and 10 minutes for questions. And then we'll have time for questions again at the end. And I'll recognize, as we get to the questions, I'll keep an eye on the time. And so let's launch in with Elizabeth Hittman, who is the Sustainability Program Director for the Environmental Collaborative Office of the City of Milwaukee. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let me share my screen here. We can get started. Good. Everyone can see that, hopefully. Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know it's such a sunny night, so it's hard to commit to a webinar, but this is great for all the people that are interested in solar. And congratulations to everyone at the Sherman Park Community Association for all the work that they've done on getting Sherman Park through the eco neighborhood process, or I think they're in process right now. So like Pastor Tim said, my name is Elizabeth Hittman. I work for the City of Milwaukee. My colleague Dynasty is on the call tonight as well. We're in part of the Environmental Collaboration Office, which is part of the Mayor's Office. So we have many programs all dealing with sustainability, and we're helping to make Milwaukee an eco city as well. So the presentation tonight is on our solar group buy program, which Mayor Barrett likes to call the Costco of solar. So it's bulk purchasing solar components, and it's cheaper for everybody then. So everyone saves money. This time around, since the pandemic made it impossible for us to do one last year, there's a lot of pent up excitement. And so you can see this time around, we have a lot of partners, but that's great because the more people that participate, the cheaper it is for everybody. So we're partnering with some other local communities, but then Bayview Neighborhood Association, Sherman Park, and Walnut Way is one of our partners as well. So we're really excited. We've been doing these solar group buy programs for probably about 7 or 8 years. The first one that we did was in River West. They were kind of our guinea pig, and 17 homes ended up installing solar that year in River West. The year before that, there was only 8 solar installs in the entire city of Milwaukee. So a lot of people are excited. We're hearing more about solar. The cost has come down about 80% in the last decade. So it's more affordable, and we're seeing tons more solar pop up around Milwaukee. Why are we here? We're leading, we want to lead in creating a more sustainable community by making solar simple and affordable. I always say solar is probably something you're only going to do once. So I really want to make sure everyone has a positive experience with it, that they're happy, and that it's affordable and easy for them. Milwaukee Shines is one of the programs that I run at the city. It's a city solar program. So we're working to expand solar energy through a comprehensive citywide approach. I help home and business owners through the process of installing solar, but then we also try to work to get solar in city buildings to save taxpayer dollars. And a lot of this work in the past has been funded through the U.S. Department of Energy, which has been really an amazing partner. This picture here is some solar that was going up on Habitat for Humanity homes, which is a great partnership that we had about 8 or 9 years ago. And just, I'll zoom through these, but some real quick pictures of renewable energy in Milwaukee. Some of you maybe have heard from this is a picture from spring, even though there's snow on the ground. I was telling Mabel, all of our press events with the mayor are snowy or rainy when we were talking about solar. This is a huge 2 megawatt solar installation out by the airport project that we did with We Energies. If you're driving around town, you can see solar all over the place. This is one of the, an older installation, but one of my favorites on Urban Ecology Center. Solar on the roof of Central Library with a green roof. We did the wind turbine at the port building. Here I threw in this River West Stein picture because it's technically happy hour time, but Lakefront Brewery is a solar brewery. That picture on the top left is the Milwaukee Public Museum. Not a lot of people know that they have solar on the surface of their building. And then just some other neighborhood pictures. Tippecanoe Library, Center Street Library. Those are recent projects that we worked on. So for these power hours, I always like to give people a little solar 101 so they feel educated and informed, so they can ask their solar installer questions, because a lot of this is new to folks. So we do a little overview of how solar works, what you can expect to see on your home if solar's installed. And then we'll talk about how the group buy works. And then I'll end with financing, which will lead into a great conversation with Kevin. So we like to go over some terminology because solar installers will throw these words around a lot. So we have a kilowatt hour and a kilowatt. A kilowatt hour is a unit of energy used or produced. So this is how the utility knows how much energy you're using. If you look at your We Energies bill, it'll say how many kilowatt hours you used for that month, and then there's a cost per kilowatt hour. As homeowners, we pay 13.9 cents per kilowatt hour. If you're a business owner, it's usually less expensive. A kilowatt is a measurement of capacity, and this is how you talk about how large of a solar array you have on your home. In the past, people would install about a 2 kilowatt system on their home on average in Milwaukee, but because the price has come down so much, now we're seeing people install 5 kilowatts, 6 kilowatt systems. And typically, depending on what kind of solar panels you use, it's usually about 3 panels per kilowatt. So the 2 most popular questions that I get is, does solar work in Wisconsin? And the answer is absolutely. Wisconsin's a great state for solar. Obviously not as good as the Southwest, but we still get tons of sun. The little map on the right side, that inset map, that's Germany. Germany produces over 40% of their country's electricity from solar, and they get about the same amount of sun as Alaska. So we get more sun than Germany does. So it's definitely doable here. The other question I get is snow. Can solar work in Wisconsin with the snow? And the answer is absolutely. The solar panels are covered in a heavy duty glass. The glass is rated for 1-inch hail at 50 miles per hour. So it's really heavy duty. And the solar panels are a dark surface, so they heat up even in the winter. And they're always mounted at an angle. So, if we get like a really wet snow and then it freezes and gets like sub-zero temperatures, you might have snow on your solar panels for a day or two, but you don't have to scrape it off. You don't have to do anything. It'll eventually just slide right off, like you can see in this picture. The other great thing about solar, and this is kind of a new data that just came out, because in the past people would install solar and they weren't selling their homes. It was people that were going to be in their homes for a while, but that's not always the case. So more data is available now on how solar affects the value of your home. So homes with solar, if they were on the market, sell for about 4% more than non-solar homes, and then they sell faster. I mean, right now the housing market in Milwaukee is kind of crazy. Houses are selling so fast, but people see solar on a home as like an added amenity similar to granite countertops or anything else that would make a home more desirable. So it definitely adds to the value of your home. Location and siting for solar. So your solar window is what solar installers refer to as from the time period of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's when your solar panels are going to be producing the most electricity. So you really want to make sure that your solar panels aren't covered with any shading between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. If you have a little bit of shading early in the morning or the afternoon, it's not a deal breaker. But if your roof is shaded, for the majority of the day, it might not be a great idea for you. So look at your home, either if you have a detached garage or your house, kind of peek at it during the middle of the day, see if there's any shading that you can see either from trees, buildings, telephone poles, even telephone wires. So a south-facing surface is going to produce the most amount of electricity. So if you have a south-facing surface free of shade, you are a great candidate for solar. You can do an east-west installation. It would have to be on both sides. We had a question at my last power hour. They only had a west-facing surface, and really you'd only get the production from noon until 3 o'clock. So east-west, more and more people are doing those installations as well. They're going to produce about 80% of what a south-facing installation would produce, but still doable if the orientation of your house is not facing south. There's a really great website you can see here at the bottom. It's called Google Project Sunroof. You can type in your address and it uses satellite data to tell you if you have a good solar window. It's not perfect. It's not super up to date. Like if you've trimmed a tree within the past year, that probably wouldn't show up. It also doesn't show detached garages, but it kind of is a good starting place to see if your home's a good candidate. The home on the left, not a great candidate, too much shading. The home on the right, excellent candidate. If you type your address in and your house looks like the home on the left, I still recommend people contact a solar installer and have them look, because they can use a piece of equipment that really does evaluate the shading of their roof. So it might not be a deal breaker, but this is a good place to start. So this illustration shows the most simple way to install solar, the most common way, and this is going to be the most affordable way to install solar. So you can see here the solar panels are attached to the roof. South-facing surface. All of the solar panels together are referred to as your solar array. The next piece, so that's a major piece of equipment. The next piece of equipment is your inverter, and that's a piece of equipment that converts the electricity from the solar panels from DC or direct current to AC or alternating current, and that's the electricity that comes out of the plugs in your house. So that piece of equipment is really important. It converts it to a usable form. Since we all live in We Energies territory, I saw a question pop up. I think Racine is still We Energies territory. We Energies does require a second utility meter. So right now, everyone has a utility meter that tracks those kilowatt hours, how much electricity you're using. Your solar installer will install a second utility meter, and that is going to keep track of how many kilowatt hours your solar panels are producing. And I have a slide about that in a little bit. That's called net metering. And then that also allows you to be tied into the grid. 99% of people in the Milwaukee area will be connected to the grid. The benefit of that is if your solar panels are producing electricity and you're not home to use that, that energy will go out onto the grid. The utility can sell that energy to your neighbors. The thing to keep in mind is, like I said, we all pay 13.9 cents a kilowatt hour. If you have extra energy at the end of the month that the utility has sold, they pay you the wholesale rate, which is 3 cents. So some people really want to fill their whole roof with solar, and then they're like, I'll get a check from the utility. That's not a great idea. But the benefit is if you do ever overproduce electricity that you don't use, you will get compensated from the utility. If you are not tied into the utility grid, the alternative would be battery system, which is becoming more affordable, more popular. Everybody loves the Tesla Powerwall, and now we're starting to see them in Wisconsin. So if batteries are something that you're interested in, that's a conversation that you should have with your solar installer. It can add to the cost of your system, but the cost of batteries is really coming down. So if you have anything like a sub pump or a chest freezer or a computer server, anything you don't want to be without electricity ever, talk to your solar installer about batteries. It is something that you can add later. So if it's not within your budget to do it now, you can always do it later, but definitely a great conversation to have. Those inverters that I talked about that convert the electricity from DC to AC, there's 2 different kinds of inverters, and the price, there's a little bit of difference in price, but each one is better for a different application. One big string inverter is an inverter that converts the electricity from your entire solar array. This is the least expensive inverter option, and it's the best option if you don't have any shading at all. If you have some shading on your roof, the next best option for you are microinverters, which is a small inverter on the back of every single panel. So if one panel is shaded, the remaining panels will still be producing. If you had one inverter for the whole system and part of it was shaded, it would knock out the production from your whole array. So these are a little bit more expensive, not terribly expensive, but in the long run, you'll get more production out of your solar. So these will be a better option. And the final version is kind of a hybrid. It's a 1 string inverter with power optimizers, which kind of help alleviate any sort of lost production from shading, but you still have that 1 inverter. The great thing about inverters too is it allows you to monitor the electricity production from your solar online. So people really love to geek out and they'll create an account and they can check every single day. If a cloud goes over, they'll see their electricity dip a little bit and then they'll go back up. So we like to call this the heart of the array. So it really is where all the action happens. And then the remaining component is racking. It's not super easy to see in this picture, but it's metal racking so the solar panels are not attached directly to your roof, they're attached to racking. So whether you have an asphalt shingle roof, you have a tile roof, there's special racking for a tile roof. All the racking has special flashing material, so there's no problems with leaking in your roof. They're attached to the trusses of your roof, whether this is a garage or your home, and then the solar panels are attached to the racking. So there's a little bit of space in between. The good thing is it will extend the life of your roof because the solar panels are protecting your roof from the elements, but there is a little bit of space, so people are aware of that. So net metering, that concept that I talked about earlier, where you have 2 utility meters, one's keeping track of how much electricity you're using, and the other is keeping track of how much electricity your solar panels are producing. That's called net metering. Even though people don't really have rollover minutes for cell phone anymore, it's kind of an easy way to explain it. So you can see this picture here. The blue is how much electricity you're using. The yellow is how much electricity your solar is producing. It doesn't always pair up. And so that's the great thing about having those 2 meters. Like you use a lot of electricity in the morning when you wake up, you're using the toaster, turn the TV on in the evening if you're doing some laundry. But your solar panels are going to be producing, like I said, the most from 9 to 3. So having those 2 meters keeps a running tally of your usage and your production, and the utility closes you out at the end of every month. So at the end of each month, if you have credits in the bank, you get a credit on your utility bill. Or if you've used more electricity than your solar produced, you'll receive a bill from the utility, but many times it's half or a quarter or a small fraction of what your utility bill usually is. Most folks in Milwaukee receive credits on their bill in April, May, June, July, but then they end up paying a bill in the winter months, but those credits will carry over. So things to think about if your home is well suited for solar. Do you have a south facing surface or east-west facing surface? Look to your home, your garage, Backyard really comes into play if people want to do a ground mount, but we don't see those very often in Milwaukee. So it's when the solar is just mounted to the ground, you give up a lot of valuable real estate in your backyard. Think about shade issues from trees or buildings or power lines. If you need to re-roof, that's something that we typically tell people that they want to do that first before they install solar. A lot of people will do it all at once. Is your roof structurally sound? That's a question that the solar installers will be able to talk to you about. So when you get a bid from your solar installer, they're going to want to look at your past utility usage. So if you haven't created an account on We Energy's website, I recommend that you do, because you can see a few past years of how much electricity that you use. If you have air conditioning, the most electricity you use is always going to be in the months when you have your air conditioning on. That uses the most electricity. But your solar installer will give you a chart similar to this. The blue is your historic electricity usage, and the orange is your projected solar production. So you can kind of get a feeling of what your utility bill will be like each month. So in this example, April, May, June, almost July, overproduced electricity from your solar, so you get a credit on your bill those months. And then the cloudier winter months, you'd receive a bill, but it would be like 50%. Historic properties. This is definitely applicable to Sherman Park neighborhood. We've had this pop up before. If you live in a historic district or if you live in a historic home, you can still install solar. Wisconsin has a state law that prohibits any agency from denying you the ability to install renewable energy. The only thing that we have to keep in mind is it does need to be, your solar installation needs to be approved by historic preservation prior to your permit being issued. So, historic preservation will sometimes give recommendations for the placement of the panels. They definitely don't, they would prefer it if they were towards the back of the house instead of the front of the house, but they definitely are on Team Solar for City of Milwaukee, and they're very willing to work with homeowners that want to install solar. So the solar group buy, how does it work? We have always partnered with the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, which is a really amazing nonprofit, and I'm very biased because I used to work there. They're headquartered in central Wisconsin, but their territory is the Midwest, and they do these solar group buy programs with cities all over the Midwest. You can see here all the stars are homes that have installed solar through their programs. Super, super heavy emphasis on education. We want people to feel educated and informed. We want to be there as a resource for them. If they have questions, they might not feel comfortable talking to their contractor. Another great component is that we put out a request for proposals from solar installers, knowing that we are going to do all the outreach and education, and the solar installers just have to follow up. So they have to be able to handle a ton of requests for bids in a short amount of time. They have to have quality installations. They have to know what they're doing. And so we usually put out this bid in early spring. We get a bunch of bids back from solar installers who want to be our partner for the program. We create a community advisory committee. It's different every year. And so folks review all the bids from the solar installers and select the company that they think has the best price and also it has the best quality. So I lead the community outreach. The MREA does a lot of community outreach. I will be at the farmers market in Shorewood this weekend since they're one of our partners. We always started in the spring and ended in the fall because we keep a running tally of how many people are participating in the program. And that's how we know if people get incentives at the end. Strong customer education and economy of scale, that's the Costco component. So the solar installer is able to purchase a lot of equipment knowing that they're going to be busy, and they can pass along those savings to the homeowner. So right now we're doing all of these educational sessions. We selected our solar installer in April. This program really is open to anyone in Milwaukee County. So even if you live in a community and you didn't see your logo on that slide, that's totally fine. I think that there's a separate solar group buy program in Racine. I saw that question pop up earlier. With a different solar installer, but you can Google Racine solar group buy and see there might be, I think that there's a different one in Racine, but anyone can participate. The price you get from the solar installer is all inclusive. So it includes the equipment, it includes the labor, it includes any permits, and the warranty on the equipment is all the panels. We require a 25-year warranty on the solar panels. And depending on what kind of inverter is installed on your home, usually the warranty on the inverter is between 10 and 15 years. So there's a really great warranty on the equipment. We do require that the solar installers are able to bid out on American-made solar panels if that's something that is important to you. The price is always more expensive for American-made products, but we want that to be an option. So our selected solar installer for this Greater Milwaukee Group Buy program is Arch Electric. They're headquartered in Plymouth, Wisconsin, which is right by Sheboygan, but they do have a Milwaukee office on the east side. So we're really excited. This is a picture in the background of one. They do residential and commercial. This is the School Sisters of St. Francis in the Layton Boulevard West neighborhood. They did that huge project, which is awesome. They are definitely growing. They said in 2017, they had 20 employees. Now they have over 100 people. So they're expanding as more and more people get excited about solar. And they have a team that's just dedicated to homeowners to give bids and to follow up. We don't want people waiting around a super long time to get their solar installed if they decide they're ready to go. So the advisory team felt like Arch Electric was the best company for the job. So we're excited to work with them. So like I said, when the solar installers bid on the program, they typically give a cheaper price because they know that we're going to do a lot of the answering of the questions and making sure people are ready to go before the solar installer comes, and they're able to bulk purchase those components. When they give prices, they always talk about a price per watt. So their price is about $3.03 a watt, or if you converted that to kilowatts, it would be $3,000 per kilowatt. But like I said, that price is all inclusive: permits, equipment, labor, everything. This chart is like not the easiest to follow, but if you can see here, this first row, 50 kilowatts, 150 kilowatts, 250 and 350. As a community, as we install solar, as we hit these levels, the solar installer at the end of the program will give the homeowners that installed solar a rebate check. So it's like a little reward for, telling your friends, telling your neighbors, and it really does help bring down the cost. So right now we're closing in on 100 kilowatts. So we've already hit that 50 kilowatt threshold. So you can see there it's $10 a kilowatt. If you installed a 5 kilowatt system, that would be $50. Yes. But if we hit the 150 or 250, that price goes up. So in the past for these programs, people will get a check back from the solar installer anywhere from $75 to $100, all the way up to $900 or $1,000. It all depends on what size system you install. So the blue chart on the left is the solar group buy, an average cost. This is for a 6 kilowatt system. The example here, that's actually like kind of large for the city of Milwaukee, but we tried to find a happy medium between Milwaukee and all of the other communities that are participating that might have larger roofs. So if you see this large number at the start, $19,000, that's for a fairly large size residential system. The great thing about solar is you can do a system that fits your budget. I always say the 3 things that are going to limit the size of your system: your roof space. There's some people that have a really tiny roof and they can't fit a lot of solar on. Your budget, or how much electricity you need. So a lot of times the solar installers will give you a bid for as much solar as can fit on your roof. Don't let that scare you. You can always go smaller if it fits better with your budget. But you can see here, so the blue is a solar group buy. The one on the right is if you were to just get some bids on your own, and these are all average costs. Every house is different and every company is different. But you can see that base cost, so the upfront cost. Any adders, I'll talk about those a little bit later. Those are things that could add to the cost of your solar installation. The great thing is our state incentive program, Focus on Energy, now has $500 cash back incentives for homeowners that install solar. You get a check back for $500. The other great news is there's a 26% federal tax credit, so you could claim the remaining amount after your focus rebate when you do your taxes. So that really brings down the cost a lot. And you can see the difference here is on the blue, in the blue chart, that solar group buy incentive from the solar installer at the end. So it really, it brings down the cost by, $1,500, maybe close to $2,000. Every home is different, but it's kind of like a little bonus incentive. Plus, that I'm here and the Midwest Renewable Energy Association is here to answer questions or help if you run into problems. The other great thing is that anyone that participates in the Solar Group Buy program, the solar installer purchases them a 1-year membership to the MREA, the Midwest Renewable Energy Association every year, except for last year and this year because of the pandemic. They hold an energy fair always around summer solstice in June. It's the country's largest and longest running sustainability festival. It's a 3-day festival. There's workshops on all sorts of sustainability, gardening, renewable energy, canning and preserving, all this great stuff. And then there's beer and music. It's really fun. So that's a benefit. The other great thing about this year's program is we have a partnership with Walnut Way in the Lindsay Heights neighborhood, who was as another eco neighborhood. And so they were able to, the MREA did fundraising for scholarships, and they did solar job training for folks that work for Walnut Way and people in the neighborhood. And then part of this program is that the solar installer, Arch Electric, that we selected is going to be helping Walnut Way install a solar plus battery system on their wellness commons on 17th and North Avenue. So it's kind of another great way to work a community partner in. All the main website for this program is growsolar.org/Milwaukee. That's where you can find additional information, more workshops or webinars like this one. And there's also a link on there to request a bid or a quote from the solar installer. And at no point are you like tied in. You can request a bid from the solar installer, and a lot of people will, have it and think about it, especially if they need to re-roof. Don't feel like you're roped into the program, not until you sign an actual contract and put a down payment with the solar installer are you part of the program. So we don't want people to feel pressured. All right, I'm a fast talker. I have my timer going. So I'll talk a little bit about solar financials, and then on my final slide, I'll kind of lead into Kevin Kane's presentation, but we'll have time for Q&A quick before he starts. So the cost of solar, the challenge is that it is an upfront cost. So we try to give people all the tools in the toolbox to make it a reality. I did talk a little bit earlier about some of the adders that can add to that base cost of solar. And this is feedback that we've gotten after doing this for a couple of years. Homeowners say, hey, let us know if there's something that could pop up. It might be a cost that we didn't anticipate. So we like to make people feel super informed. So things that could add to the cost, system design and size. I know these pictures are very small, but you can see the fourth picture on the top. That's a little bit more complicated of a system design because they have a chimney right in the middle of their roof. If you have like a parapet, that could add to the complexity. Some people will do a system on their home and their garage. So all of those things could add to the cost. A detached garage, the added cost comes because they have to trench the wires back to your home. So it always needs to be connected to your electrical box and your electric meter for the utility. Age and type of roof. If you have the least expensive way is going to be asphalt shingle roof. If you have a tile roof, still doable. They just need to purchase a little bit of different style of racking. So that could add to the cost a little bit. Panel type. So type of solar panel we talked about. American made panels are going to be a little bit more expensive. There's panels called black on black where you can see this second from the left on the bottom. Those are black on black where it's like really sleek looking, no metal frame. Inverter type, we talked about that. Those microinverters are slightly more expensive, but not a deal breaker. Height and pitch of roof. If you have a 2-story house or a 3-story house, there will be a little bit of an added cost because the solar installers go a little bit slower. They have to tie off for OSHA safety requirements. There was a house on the east side that installed solar that it was such a steep roof and so high, they almost had to rent a cherry picker to get up there. So that's something that could add to the cost. Complexity of electrical interconnections. Something to keep in mind is that the city electrical inspectors do need to come and check these. So if your electric is not up to code in your house, that's something that has popped up in the past. The solar installers would have to upgrade the electrical. We've also had homes where it was like a single family home and they split to a duplex, then they came back to a single family home. So they had 2 electric boxes and 2 meters. Anything like that could be a little bit complicated, could add, maybe just a couple $100s to the cost. Energy storage, so that's batteries. Batteries can add significantly to the cost, but similar to solar, you can start out small and add to the battery bank. But it is something that's becoming more popular and more in demand. So like I said, the good thing though is that we have that 26% federal tax credit, which is amazing. Utility net metering credit, so you'll get credited if you overproduce electricity in the summer. Focus on energy, and if anyone on this call is interested in solar for a commercial property, there's additional focus on energy incentives, and you can see those here based on the size of the system that you install. So up to $13,000 for a system that's 100 kilowatts. So one of the tools in the toolbox that we have is we have a loan program with Summit Credit Union for specifically for solar. You don't have to use this for the program. A lot of people like working with their own credit union or bank, but this is an option if you are a new homeowner and you don't have a lot of equity in your home and a home equity line of credit isn't an option for you. This Summit loan is available to people with not like amazing credit, or if they're new homeowners and they don't have a lot of equity in their home. So it's a loan for up to $20,000. It can be used for re-roofing if you're going to move forward with solar, but it's not, it's just one of the tools if you need it. Another component to the Solar Group Buy program is the MREA is a member of Clean Energy Credit Union, which is a national credit union, and they help fund clean energy projects. And because the MREA is a member, if you install solar through the Group Buy, you are eligible to finance through the Clean Energy Credit Union. So that's just an option as well. And then my last slide is, I don't want to steal Kevin's thunder, but is green mortgages. So he'll go into a little bit more detail about that because he's obviously the expert. But I will pause there in case there's any questions before Kevin takes over.
Okay, with that said, Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We have 20 people on this call, and I am just wondering if some of you who had questions, if you want to just unmute yourself and ask, or I could read the questions. Okay, since nobody's saying anything, I'll start reading. Joe Sabo asked, he said he's from Racine. He's not sure if all the incentives apply, but looking for info, especially state and federal, on solar.
Yeah, and I think Kevin answered that as well. So the only thing that wouldn't apply to someone in Racine would be that Summit Credit Union loan. That's only for people that live in the city of Milwaukee because it's a city program. But the focus on energy incentive, you'd still get that. And like I mentioned, I think that there's a group buy in Racine as well with another solar installer. So you could peek at that. People will get bids from multiple solar installers, but Racine has a new sustainability director named Kara Pratt. So she would be a great resource as well. But otherwise, the state and federal incentives would all apply. Yep.
Awesome. Joe had another question. He asked, what angle do you recommend, 45 degrees, or is there a range?
Yeah, so it's if you're mounting them on your roof, it's whatever angle your roof is. If you have a flat roof, if some homes have flat roofs, or if you're wanting to install on a commercial property, the state focus on energy incentive, you'll only be able to get that with a minimum angle of 10 degrees. So they can't be any flatter than 10 degrees on a flat roof. Otherwise, your solar installer will try to find that happy medium of getting the maximum output, at like high noon on summer solstice all the way to winter solstice when the sun is really low. So they use modeling software to figure out the best angle and the way to fit the most panels on as well. So if it's on the roof of your home or your garage, it'll be whatever angle your roof is.
Okay. And a final question from Joe. He asked anything about solar water heating, preheaters for hot water, obviously easier for new construction, but he has an older home.
Yeah, so 10 years ago, there was a very robust solar hot water market. The cost of natural gas has come down so low that we just really haven't seen any solar hot water be installed in probably 6 or 7 years. It still is doable. There's a few lingering solar or installers that will do solar hot water out there. But I've heard the payback is usually around 40 years for that, just because natural gas is so inexpensive right now. But it is still doable. And so for the rest of you, it's similar to the solar panels that produce electricity, only it heats the water. So if you have radiant heating in your floor, that it's a great idea. Milwaukee Brewing Company in Walker's Point, they had solar hot water and they were preheating all of the water that they were using to brew their beer. So for larger applications like swimming pools for high school, breweries, it's really popular. Central Waters in central Wisconsin, they have solar hot water. It's less common for homeowners, but if you are interested in that, I'm happy to track down some contractors that can do that for you.
Okay, and Veronica Lopez asked the question. She says, what about a metal roof?
Oh yeah, metal roofs it's actually a pretty easy installation for the contractors. Instead of the racking being mounted to the trusses of your home, there's a material that's like a clip. So they clip the solar panels to the seam of your metal roof. So it's definitely doable.
Okay, Joe asked another question. He says that natural gas price is artificially low and emits greenhouse gases, leaky methane and CO2, and should be discouraged. I need a new water heater and Joe needs a new water heater and he'd like to consider on-demand electric with electric from solar, and he's thinking he needs batteries.
Yeah, so that is a great application for batteries. More, like 5 years ago, no one in Milwaukee was doing batteries. People were mostly doing batteries up north if they had like a cabin or they didn't want to, it's kind of expensive to drop a line from the utility to your property if you're not already connected. But now with these lithium ion batteries, the Tesla Powerwall, other battery companies are out there, Generac. More and more people are installing batteries. So that would be a great question to talk to your solar installer about. So if, building electrification, Kevin can probably talk about this. It's definitely a move in the right direction, especially if you're producing your electricity from clean energy. So electric water heaters. Another thing I forgot to mention is if you are planning to purchase an electric vehicle in the future, that could be a conversation that you should also have with your solar installer, because they might want to add more solar to your system, knowing that you'll be charging your vehicle in the evening. So similar to an electric vehicle, if you're gonna be switching to an electric water heater, tell your solar installer that so they'll know how much electricity you need.
Okay, thank you for that. And then we have a final question from Pastor Thad Winkle. He would like you to please share any existing incentives for non-residential properties such as a church.
Yeah, that is a great question. So the challenge for churches and government, obviously, is that we can't take advantage of that tax credit, which for a larger solar installation could be, $50,000, $75,000.
On the stove that should be done.
And so there are some
Marty?
grants available on the state
I'm
level.
gonna have to get on her. She need to have her unit on. Otherwise, I'm gonna take it and put it in Malik.
Monique, I'm gonna need you to mute your line.
Oh,
please.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Renew Wisconsin and the MREA, who I mentioned earlier, they're two nonprofits in the state, and they have grants for nonprofits, which includes churches, to help bring down that cost. And then I could probably go into a little bit more detail offline with you as well. There are some other options for government and churches and schools for installing solar that is currently working its way through the Wisconsin courts. And we are one of the people suing the utility, the city of Milwaukee, to try to allow outside companies to come in and install solar on your building, and you would buy the electricity from them instead of the utility. So it would be at a cheaper rate, and it would be a clean energy from solar. Like Elon Musk's company is one of the companies that would do this. Obviously, the utilities don't want that to happen, so they're challenging it, but it would really open up the market for nonprofits, churches, schools, government buildings.
Okay. Are there any other questions? All
Thanks, everyone.
right.
Those are great questions.
I have a
Yes.
question. With the current presidency being concerned about climate change, do you foresee additional incentives in the future? I had an estimate done in 2020, of course, before the presidential election, and I was kind of going, maybe there'll be even more incentives in the future if it goes our way. But okay, I just
That's a
showed you my political
We heard you,
affiliation.
Judy.
So we're definitely hoping for some money to come, to the state and to local governments to install our own renewable energy. I'm not sure about the tax credit. It used to be 30%, and then it stepped down to 26%, and it's slated to continuously step down for homeowners until it goes away. Obviously, with the new administration and a new president in the White House who is, definitely cares about climate change, we're hoping that they'll keep it at 26% for the foreseeable future. I don't know if Kevin has other opinions about this. Nationally, there are solar industry organizations that have really been working hard to keep that incentive. I do know that Focus on Energy, our state incentive program, has been talking about having tiered incentives for homeowners. So if, they have additional incentives if you are low to moderate income and for energy efficiency, but they don't have that for solar just yet. And they're talking about doing that for solar. So that's something that we're excited for as well. I would say I'll cross my fingers for more incentives for homeowners, but I'm not sure. My guess is they'll keep that tax credit at 26% going forward instead of having it step down. It was going to go to 22% and then go away for homeowners originally, but we'll see. We'll cross our fingers.
So Elizabeth, thank you so much. That's a great segue to having Kevin step up and present, but wonderful presentation. And just to remind everybody, this is being recorded, so it will be available on the Sherman Park Community Association website on the webpage. We're building our own green webpage. Thank you, Elizabeth. And there will be time, if you think of other questions, there'll be time at the end to ask both Kevin and Elizabeth questions related to their presentations. So introduce Kevin Kane again from Green Homeowners United. He's the chief economist and executive director of the organization. Kevin.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks everyone for being here today. Am I coming through okay, sound-wise? Thumbs up? All right. Yeah. So I am very excited to talk about ways that people who really want to help participate in cutting carbon emissions, save money, participate in things like group solar buys, but may not think they have the means to do so. Well, it turns out that for many, many people, the answer is actually, yeah, you do. And so what I'm going to share is a way to do that. Now, I would love for you guys to listen, not just with an eye toward, could this impact me? But I'd like for you to listen as a way of thinking, is there someone else I know who might be able to qualify for this? Because one of the best ways to double your positive impact on the planet is to find just one more person to do exactly these steps. And so we really need, as my rural friends will say, a barn raising or really a community togetherness to get the word out on. So we're going to talk a little bit about the idea of green home improvements, green mortgages, but we're going to go beyond that too. Green Homeowners United is an organization that we founded not even a year ago, spinning off of a nonprofit called Citizen Action of Wisconsin to help people figure out how to improve and access energy efficiency improvements. And I'm going to brag here a little bit. You'll notice that there's a nice little Sherman Park as an eco neighborhood right here in the corner. We had the chance to work on a house this week in the Sherman Park area, which we're very excited about. So the first thing is the reason this came about is climate scientists, climate experts, in this case, the National Resource Defense Council, have found that upgrading homes to be energy efficient is the single biggest thing society must and can do to cut carbon emissions. Obviously, we have to do everything, but upgrading homes is the single biggest thing. It's more than making every car an electric vehicle. We must upgrade homes. Now, what's fascinating is that that doesn't even include solar. Solar, geothermal, other renewables are in a completely different category, as is what is known as electrifying homes, getting them off gas, propane, natural gas, and all that. But when you put them together, homes are the most important part of cutting carbon emissions. And so we must work on them, and we must make it truly affordable for the vast majority of Americans and Sherman Park residents to be able to take advantage of. So one of the ways that we've been able to help make that happen is an idea called green mortgages. Now, this is not for everyone, but it can help a lot of people. How it works is when someone buys or refinances a home, the bank will throw in an extra 15% of the value of the home, specifically earmarked for energy efficiency improvements, whether they're solar panels, insulation and air sealing, water efficiency improvements, whatever they are, with the idea that they help people save money and cut carbon. And they're approximately the same interest rate as a conventional home loan offered by a bunch of different lending institutions. But effectively, it means that there is no reason why every home purchase, why every home refinance couldn't also be a green mortgage. There's no penalty for doing so. There's no higher fee. There's no extra interest. And in the corner here, I have the interest rate of one lender, Associated Bank, the biggest bank in Wisconsin, from today. So if your interest rate on your home is higher than the numbers listed there, there's a very good chance we could put a solar panel on your roof for almost no dollars. In some cases, no dollars at all. But the vision here is that for every $1 added by the lender, the utility bills are slated to decrease by at least $1. So it can be offered to a higher, what they say, loan to value. So effectively, they can loan more because it's safe, because energy efficiency and renewables are safe investments. Effectively, what's being proposed is the banks want to go after the money that you're already paying We Energies. You would effectively move who you pay less to We Energies, a little bit more to the bank, and saving the difference. So in theory, it's affordable and in some cases no cost for most people. Right now, these are the lenders that in Wisconsin that have agreed to do so. Associated Bank is, of course, the biggest, but there's a number of them on here. And not all of them are local to the greater Milwaukee area, but all of them lend in Milwaukee County and city itself. The first thing, though, is that there are possible ways to work with other banks and credit unions to do this, but their interest rates tend to be a little higher because they haven't officially signed up for the green mortgage. However, any lender can offer green mortgages. They just need to be shown how. We can help. So if there is a bank or credit union that you want to do this, and you know who to talk to over there, I'd love to be introduced because there's no reason why they can't do this. They just haven't yet been asked, or the right person there hasn't yet been asked. But in the meantime, we help people do this. And the reason I know all this is because this is my house. I was the guinea pig for this program. My home in West Allis is the very first home in Wisconsin to take part in a green mortgage. And I live in the exact average price, average sized house in the state of Wisconsin. So if it can work on my home, built in the 50s, it can work on a lot of others. The green mortgage covered solar panels. It covered a heat pump hybrid electric water heater, which I have very strong opinions on. I think they're fascinating. They actually can act like batteries too. I can get into that later. Low emissivity windows, insulation, water efficiency improvements. It covered all that. We had an energy audit done on my home for it. The lender added in $29,000 to the mortgage. Now they're a bank. They want that money back. It covered all the things that I mentioned: solar panels, windows, doors, heat pump, water heater, insulation, air sealing. What's interesting is that immediately, though, the bank, the appraiser, valued my house more than the amount they put in. So if I sell the house tomorrow, the bank gets their money back, I make a little money, and the house permanently has lower carbon emissions. But the most important piece was that while the bank wants that money back, it's in my mortgage. It's not a separate loan. It's rolled into my mortgage. And the change to my mortgage is actually less than the monthly utility bill saving on my water, gas, electric, and sewer bills. Meaning, doing this was effectively no cost for me, and I'm not locked in for any period of time. And this is what we found most homeowners that we work with experience, is that, as you can see from here, if your current home pays a fair amount to the bank and a fair amount to the utilities, the new program, you might pay a little bit more to the bank, but a lot less to the utilities, and you'll be saving the difference. Most homeowners we work with, this is just a sample, see some version of that. So we built Green Homeowners United to help people do what I did, And while we haven't been around a full year yet officially doing this, our vision was to create living wage jobs fighting climate change by helping people understand how to make this happen on their home. We've been working throughout the state, rural, urban, all over the place. Unfortunately, I haven't done nearly as many in Milwaukee City as I would hope. And we're hoping that events like these can help change that. So what upgrades are we talking about? When we go into a home, we want to understand it's things like solar panels, LED lights, smart thermostats, what's known as air sealing the building to reduce that heat loss and draftiness, insulating attics and basements, high efficiency water improvements for your toilets and showers and faucets, heat pumps, especially heat pump water heaters or mini split heat pumps in some cases, improving heating efficiency through duct sealing or boiler pipe insulation, things like that to help make sure that the heat gets to where it's supposed to go. Now this program can include things like Energy Star windows, furnaces, water heaters, and air conditioning. But what we usually find is that it's usually not cost effective to include in a green mortgage because they tend to cost a little bit more on their own than they save. However, in many homes we work with, homeowners can get one of these so long as they also include the far more cost-effective improvements too. And so for my house, I did windows, and but I also did air sealing and attic insulation and water and solar. So we can help figure out in your home what's the best way to cut carbon and save money. Now, again, the solar tax credit that you heard a lot about, it can be thousands of dollars, and you do not get it until after the solar panels are installed. The bank doesn't include the tax credit. That's just an extra cherry on top for you. For me, it was about $4,500. You can use that tax credit to help pay for improvements that weren't originally included in the mortgage if you'd like. And we can help you guys figure out which ones make sense. One way to do that is we'll do things like called a energy assessment. Here's an example of something called the Department of Energy Home Energy Score, where we come in and we rank the house through an assessment. Where does the house stand? How energy efficient is it compared to all other homes nationwide? As well as what is the roadmap to improving it? If I'm below average now, how do I get to some of the best homes in the nation? Here are the steps. And by the way, this is a picture of a blower door, which is a device used to depressurize and pull all the air out of the home to figure out how leaky the home is. And with it, we can seal and identify those leaks to help keep the air that you heat and cool in your home. For green mortgages, what we found is that about 56,000 Wisconsinites purchase a home annually that could have been a green mortgage had they known. And that 190,000 Wisconsinites, give or take, are currently eligible to refinance their home under today's interest rates, but they haven't done so yet. They don't know. And so it really is, we have to find the people who are considering buying, considering refinance, and tell them about these green mortgages. And that's more than 10,000 in the city of Milwaukee itself. It's a lot of people who suddenly could do this and have the bank pay for improving their home. And what's cool is that green mortgages, in either case, can pay for or can be combined with focus on energy rebates, federal renewable tax credits, the group solar buy was, that we're doing, or a down payment assistance program for moderate income home buyers. Associated Bank does that. They'll pay up to $4,000 in Milwaukee, Racine, or the Wow counties if you are below a certain income. They'll help pay for your home down payment and solar. So really, it's finding the folks who can do this, letting them know, and we'll help them figure that out. So when we come into a home and do an energy assessment, here's what we look for. Our vision is that we believe that if a bank is paying to add solar panels to a home, we might as well look for every additional way that the house can cut carbon, reduce utility bills, increase the value of the home if the bank's paying. Because electric is not the only utility you pay. Well, gas is the other big one. So when we come into a home, our energy assessments look at the feasibility of solar, including looking at the house with satellite, as Elizabeth mentioned. The levels of insulation that you have in places like your attic, basement, main floors, how drafty or leaky the home is. We'll look at the heating and cooling devices. We'll look at water devices as well as water heaters, windows, appliances, devices, etc. We'll look holistically at the home to figure out how we can save money and cut utility bills and carbon emissions. So if you're buying a home, I'm going to go through this a little fast, forgive me. What happens is the home buyer gets pre-approved for the mortgage. We can connect you to lenders who can. Once an offer is accepted, the home can receive a no-cost energy assessment to document energy improvements, or they can proceed without one if you're worried that you won't be able to have someone visit the home before the sale. So If you proceed without it, there's a limit on how much the bank will include for non-solar improvements. We'll also add in whatever the cost of solar is. So it really makes solar worthwhile. The quotes are submitted to the lender for inclusion in the mortgage, and the contractors have up to 6 months to finalize the improvements around your and their schedule. But the bank then pays the contractors directly. If you're refinancing, homeowner can get an energy assessment. We usually charge about $300, but then the bank pays you back if you forward. And quotes for improvements to the property are provided, along with an economic analysis of, hey, in my home, what's worth it? What's cost effective? If I do this, will it pay for itself? Green Homeowners United connects homeowners to the lender with all necessary paperwork. And after closing, we have up to 6 months to do those improvements, although generally they take a few days. In some cases, we can even work prior to closing as well. So here's the thing. Regardless of whether you have a mortgage or not, one of the most important steps I'd recommend, get an energy assessment of your home. There are a lot of energy experts and energy assessors in Milwaukee County and throughout the state, but energy assessments are worthwhile for a couple of reasons. They give you a roadmap for your home on how to save money and cut carbon. They can make you eligible for rebates from Focus on Energy you otherwise wouldn't be eligible for. They can increase your home's value just by showing prospective buyers your energy assessment. There's been documented ability to improve how much buyers are willing to pay for your home if you merely have an energy assessment. And you can improve it even more if you've done something based on what that energy assessment has said. Additionally, they can give you special financing terms for the green mortgage that you may otherwise not be able to get, although the green mortgage is even if you don't have an energy assessment. Usually they tend to cost about $300. Some in town charge a little more, but there's a number of people who do it. And there's assessors all over the state. There's even ways to get specialty tests of your home if you're concerned about things like radon or carbon monoxide or anything like that. And reach out to us if you'd like help with an assessment, or whether we can do it or we can help find other people who can do it. But in general, it's worth doing whether you have a mortgage or not. Learn the energy profile of your home. It will pay for itself many times. So with that, my contact info is there. That is my cell phone. If you were to call it right now, you would interrupt our video. So please feel free to reach out. We want to help make Sherman Park truly the greenest neighborhood in Milwaukee, and we believe we can. Again, for either your home or for if you know someone who has a mortgage, ask them what their interest rate is. Because there's a decent chance, if they haven't refinanced in the last few months, we can help them do so and have the bank then pay for improvements. Thank you all very much, and I know that there'll be some questions coming. I'll stick around for as many as you'd like.
Thank you, Kevin. So why don't we leave your information up there for a moment? And Mabel, are there any questions in the chat?
I do not see any questions. I do have a comment from Brian Clubundy. He said that he just signed up for a Grow Solar Milwaukee assessment at growsolar.org/Milwaukee.
As easy as that. Great. Good. Well, let's return to see everybody, and we'll leave some time for some additional questions for both. Kevin, let's start with any questions you have for Kevin. And then if you have any questions for both Elizabeth and Kevin, we'll allow some time. It's just a little bit after 7, so we have plenty of time for some additional questions.
Tim, I'll toss this in here. This is just a
Yes,
comment.
David.
I'm working with Kevin on doing this. I was originally worked with him when he was working with Citizen Action on this. And what really drew me to this was the idea that you could finance it, you could structure your financing in a way that you were paying back the loan at a lower rate than what you were saving money on the improvements with. And that really drew me to it. And then we realized we don't have a mortgage anymore. And so we can't really refinance our mortgage. But it was also exciting to learn that Kevin has a lender who is willing to give you a loan with 24 months free finance. So we were thinking about paying for it out of pocket, but we'll extend it over 20 months and 24 months. And that makes it, even affordable for us. So,
yeah. So David, thank you for sharing that. Do you want to share just briefly your experience? Because they just did a energy assessment of your home?
Yeah, well, it's in our case, it's mostly insulation. We have crawl spaces. We have an attic that was built out into a master bedroom and, excuse me, a bathroom upstairs. And there's also, excuse me again, an existing room up there. But the insulation, the crawl spaces were created. They were insulated, but the insulation's falling off the walls, that sort of thing. So that's primarily what Kevin's doing. He's also helping with insulating ducts and pipes and things like that. When he put the big blower in our door and blew the air out, we found some interesting spaces where air was leaking into the house, and in a place, particularly a place we didn't expect. We've got one of those houses with the fake fireplace, and the mantelpiece was sucking a lot of air into the house. So we're obviously losing a lot of energy there through that mantelpiece, which is probably going right to the brickwork outside. So that's going to be filled in. A lot of little things like low flow taps and things like that. I'm sure Kevin can give you a better reading on what he's done. He's been here for 2 days already. He's coming back tomorrow. So a lot of good stuff is happening.
Great. Mabel, could you take the share screen down, please? There you go. Great. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, David. And yeah, any more questions for Elizabeth and Kevin?
I have a question for Kevin. Would geothermal be an application that would be included in your program? And if so, would you want to explain it a little bit more to folks? Because I've been getting a lot of more residential geothermal questions at the city.
Sure. I find geothermal to be fascinating. The idea being that you take the heat pump, the thing that's used in water heaters and furnaces and all sorts of things, and you move heat either in or out of the ground. Air source heat pumps look kind of like air conditioners outside. They move heat in and out of the air. But geothermal are also known as ground source heat pumps. They drill big wells that either go straight down for a very far amount of distance or very wide. So I've worked with rural folks who have a lot of land and are trying to get off propane, and they'll build the pipes very wide in a big field. And the idea is that they move coolant or they move heat throughout those pipes to try to take advantage of the natural warmth that comes out of the earth and the temperature that's below ground, especially below the frost line. Geothermal is a fascinating technology, and I wish the economics of it made more sense in Milwaukee. Unfortunately, natural gas is the cheapest it's ever been, to my understanding, and Wisconsin is one of the cheapest places for natural gas in the nation. I don't fully know the story as to why that is, but it does mean that it is very, very hard to get off of natural gas water heaters, natural gas furnaces, although we absolutely have to for the sake of the planet, what's known as electrification. Now, somebody mentioned earlier that the natural gas prices are not going to stay that way forever, and I 100% agree. So if that comes to pass, geothermal systems can make a lot more sense. Right now, the math makes sense if you live in rural Wisconsin and you have propane as your heating source or electric heating. That being said, geothermal can be included in the green mortgage, but usually the payback period is more than 30 years. I worked with somebody in Tosa to look into it, and the payback period was going to be 60 years. So unfortunately, it doesn't work forever. Now, that's because of today's rebates. In the city of Chicago, they are rebating a ton more money than the state of Wisconsin is for geothermal, even though the city of Chicago's homes are not that dissimilar from our own. So it is a very important piece of technology that I hope that we incentivize more people to get. I do know people that have them. They love them. I wish I could get it on my own home, but currently it is a little hard for people to get. What I might suggest instead is heat pump electric water heaters are great for electrifying the water heater. And I had mentioned earlier, they can act like batteries because this is more well known in rural Wisconsin and rural places. But if you are creating more power with your solar than you use in that day, you could either send it back to the grid, or if it's not that lucrative, you can, what's known as overheating your water heater. Heat it to a much higher degree. Use it like a battery to put the excess energy in, and then install a little device called a mixing valve that makes sure that if the water heater is at suddenly 140, 160 degrees, you're not going to start scalding yourself. But that water then can last a lot longer. So it's very fascinating. A lot of rural utilities are thinking, wait a minute, we can turn all the homes in our community into batteries. And there's ways to do it. Those things are also way cheaper than a solar battery, by the way.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing the whole screen. Elizabeth, I have one. What is the projected percentage higher to purchase American-made solar panels?
Ooh, that is a great question. Don't quote me on this, but maybe like $1,000 to $2,000 more.
Okay.
So, years ago, there was a solar panel manufacturer in Milwaukee called Helios. And so that first program that we did in River West, every single person installed Helios panels. But unfortunately, they went out of business. I think it's hard to compete with less expensive panels. Now, most of the panels that are installed are either Canadian solar or from South Korea. I think, under Trump, there was a tariff on Chinese solar panels, which raised the cost a lot. But then it also, it was kind of a bad situation because it raised the cost on Chinese made solar panels. So then other people were trying to get solar panels from India, South Korea, Canada. And so then there was like a rush on panels. And so it raised the price a little bit. So, the price of solar really had been coming down 80% over the last decade. And then in the past year or two, it kind of like scooched back up a tiny bit, but we're hoping that kind of levels off. But yeah, a little bit added for American-made panels. And I would say, Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I always tell people on average $18,000 for batteries. So it's definitely investment, but we do foresee the cost of batteries coming down. So that's why it's kind of good if you're like, I don't need a battery right now, but I want a battery. Talk to your solar installer about that, because if the cost comes down in the next 5 to 10 years, you can add it later. Another thing to keep in mind, I always forget to tell people this, there's another great Wisconsin law that said your property value can go up from energy efficiency or renewable energy, but your taxes can't go up on that increased value. So that's good. And what was the other thing I was going to mention that I forgot? The taxes. And so 2 or 3 years ago, a colleague of mine and I went and presented at the state assessors conference, but I check in with the city assessor pretty frequently because I know this last round, everyone's home assessments went like way up. And so they were getting a lot of feedback from citizens in Milwaukee. And so we always occasionally email them and remind them if there's solar on there, it can increase the value of your home, but your taxes can't go up on that increased value.
All right.
And on average, so I know that example that I used, which was a 6 kilowatt system, that's pretty big for Milwaukee. On average, the cost we're seeing is between $7,000 and $12,000. I know that example I used was a little bit higher, which can be like sticker shock. But for homeowners, we're seeing a return on investment around 8 years. So after 8 years, you will have saved enough money from making your own electricity that you paid off your system. For commercial properties, we're seeing that around 5 years, because there's a bunch of added incentives for commercial properties.
It's a question for Mabel.
Well, no, it's a question actually from Brian, and he said, what percent? And Brian, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that question.
Yeah, I was talking about the difference between the solar panel costs between US and the overseas.
Oh, yeah, that you'd have to ask the solar installers about that. They are experts on getting panels wherever they can.
Is there approximate increase in cost between US and non-US built?
That I'd have to track down for you. I wouldn't be able, like, I kind of give a approximate added cost, you know, $1,000 to $2,000 would be my guess, but they would be able to give you the exact, you know, if they get it from the
Yeah,
supplier.
and you said,
There's 1 to
Elizabeth,
2,
I'm sorry.
1 to 2,000 on what cost? I mean, you can figure out the
For
percentage.
like an added cost. So if you did, you know, a system that's gonna cost $10,000, it might be 12,000 if you use American made panels. But that's
Okay.
approximate. That's a good
Yeah,
question.
so, that's 20%, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Elizabeth, you said that at no additional cost, they'll get, if you say, could you give me a bid with American made solar, that they'll do that?
Yep. Some people will ask for, a bid with American made and then a bid with, most likely it's going to be Canadian or South Korean, and then you can decide. Because I could be like way off, like maybe the cost of the American panels came down, so.
Okay. So I had a question for Mabel. I have a question for you that related to our TIN neighborhoods, the targeted investment neighborhoods. That's another potential place for some people to receive some additional help, correct?
I cannot answer that question, and I don't think Jermaine is still on the line, but that's a very good question because I thought about it as it also relates to the NID, the Neighborhood Improvement District, in which many of the houses are part of. There's at least 2,900 homes in the NID. So that's a really good question.
We can
to
research that.
utilize those additional programs that we have from the city that are self-funded, like the NID, things like that. And even, you know, we even have the NIP program in Sherman Park, which is the Neighborhood Improvement Project. And those are really good questions. Can those, the solar be integrated into those particular programs, and can you get any discounts? So I could definitely present that question to Jermaine, and we could follow up with everyone to, you know, after this presentation to let them know if it is actually available. So.
Elizabeth, do you know on behalf of the 70, or Kevin, do you know?
I don't know. I know that the conversation has popped up before, but I'm not quite sure. I would have to also look into it. I wrote it down.
I'm given to understand that the targeted investment neighborhood, the TIN program, can go to energy efficiency. I don't know if it can go to solar. Maybe, I'm just not sure. And if somebody lives in that area, I'd be happy to talk with them about, is there a way to combine TIN funding and financing with the city's Me Too program, because they all can be rolled in either together or even together with the green mortgages. So there's a way to do a lot of improvements to the home. And if someone's interested, let us know.
Thank you both. And Kevin, so you're available to resource people as they look at the financing, and Elizabeth has information related to that too. And this has been wonderful. Does anybody else have any questions as we come toward wrapping up? We have a few announcements about some Sherman Park activities that are coming up that Mabel would like to make, but does anybody have any last questions? I noticed Judy was asking so general question, how do you find out if you're in a NID neighborhood or a TIN neighborhood? So
yes, so if one of the things that you can do if you are interested in the NID, the TIN, you could go to our website, which is www.shermanpark.org. We do have the NID map as well as the TIN maps. The Sherman Park area has 3 TINs. But Judy, to answer your question, you are not, unfortunately, you are not in the NID.
Okay.
The NID goes from Burleigh to Burleigh to Monarchy, and then 32nd Street to 51st Street.
Got it.
But
Okay.
I will say this, there has been a lot of discussion about creating another NID north of Burleigh, because oftentimes homeowners, they make too much money to get any additional assistance, like from the city or Habitat for Humanity to do home repairs. But utilizing the NID, it does not have any income restrictions. So that's what we are hoping to do in the very near future.
Great.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, thank you to Elizabeth and Kevin, and Green Homeowners United. If you plug that into your favorite server, you can find them. And the Eco Office of the City of Milwaukee, Elizabeth is part of the staff. So you can contact both of them. Thank you so much for wonderful presentations, and thank you everybody for being with us. And Mabel just has a few announcements about some exciting opportunities that are coming up in Sherman Park. And before you do that, Mabel, we have our next webinar is going to be in July. The date's not been arranged yet. We're going to have Zoe Jump from Keep Greater Milwaukee Beautiful come in and talk about recycling. And our own homegrown Steve O'Connell is going to talk about composting. So we'll have our webinar in July, and then we're already planning for webinars in the future. But if you have any green webinars that you would like to see us do, just email Mabel at SPCA. Thank you, everybody.
All right, just 2 quick announcements. You will also be receiving this information. It should be posted in the next day. But on June 24th from 4 to 7 p.m., the Grassland Manor neighborhood, along with Sherman Park Community Association, will be hosting a commitment to safe driving. And it's trying to get residents involved and engaged in helping to reduce reckless driving. So that will be on 56th Street. Let's see what street, on Vienna. So Vienna going north. It's on Steve O'Connell's block, for those of you who know him. This event will include food trucks for those who sign up to participate in the commitment to safe driving. You will get 2 food vouchers to go and eat. We will have food trucks out there, and also we will be partnering with Upstart Kitchen to provide food as well. So please join us at that event. Please look out for the invitation. Now, next event for June will be Kothi Dance Company. Kothi Dance Company is coming to Sherman Park. They are teaching an intergenerational dance class. It will be hosted at Sherman Park at 3 p.m. So you will hear the sounds of the drum beats and be drawn to the park. So we hope you will join us. I just got that flyer from Kothi today. That flyer will also be going out to each and every one of you as well. So please join us for that. We do have some exciting events for July and August, so we hope you will participate in those events as well. Just a quick preview, we're having July 18th will be a community resource fair hosted by SPCA. It is our 50th anniversary, so we do want people to come out and participate in that event as well. So check your email and make sure that you can participate. Mark those dates if you can. So you gotta turn your mute, you're muted.
Thank you. One other announcement is that there is a newly forming Friends of Sherman Park organization. Charles Robinson and Don Turnipseed are heading that off, and they're having an event at 10 o'clock on this Saturday, right, Mabel?
Yep, we are going to be actually in the park. We're really lucky because the Friends of Sherman Park group is starting. Dawn Turnipseed is leading that charge. She is also a previous county parks employee. So she knows all the ins and outs of what trees need to get pruned and the grass getting trimmed. So we're going to be in the park Saturday, starting at 10 o'clock to do some cleanup around the compost bin, the garden beds, also doing some string trimming. So cleaning up the park so that it will be beautiful and presentable for our events coming up in the future.
Yep, and keep thinking about the things. There's on 55th and Center, if you drive by, you'll notice there's some new trees that were planted next to the post office on 55th and Center, thanks to the Forestry Department and ECO and Dynasty and Eric Schomburger. We give thanks for their efforts and the efforts of community people. We're going to be meeting at 6 o'clock on Saturday at 55th and Center to talk about a watering plan to take care of those trees, make sure they grow and flourish. So, for the good of all, may we continue to be eco-minded and may we go green. And thank you again, Elizabeth and Kevin, and thanks to everybody who was on board for tonight's presentation, and hope that we find solar panels popping up all over the community. Take care, everybody. Blessings.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, Mabel and Tim.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you all for joining us.